Force diet.
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power.
Why is the Force connecting us?
I am a Jedi.
Always two there are.
We're a dyad in the Force.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Force Diet Podcast. This is episode 45. We got two fantastic episodes tonight to talk about: The Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences. I'm your host, Obi Sean, joined as always by my best bud, Jedi John. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How's it going tonight?
I am grand. Got a lot of fun stuff to talk about tonight, don't we?
It's going to be a lot of fun. Some stuff happened as usual. Well, most of the time at least, according to some of our friends.
Mm-hmm.
But these two episodes were jam-packed with some good meaty content that we could chew on a little bit.
Definitely. And we get the big answer to kind of that unknown question of how did the Stormtrooper program kind of take off, and the reveal is only as Palpatine could do, and I think it was really well done. So I can't wait to talk about that. So why don't we just dive in, and you can give the fine people the recap for 7 and 8.
The fine people, the recap of a lifetime. No, I'm gonna kind of breeze through this, but we catch up with two clones, Cade and Slip, on Coruscant. They are at just drinking some libations, getting to cool down after work that day. Talking about how what happened on Camino was wrong, and they were posted up on Ramparts Venator. So they were going to go forward with the truth, so to speak. Well, you know what happens when you start speaking the truth about the Empire. People get cut out of the equation, so to speak.
Bad things happen.
Bad things happen. So we see Cade get shot by a sniper from pretty good distance. One would assume Crosshair is doing the dirty.
Mm-hmm.
But so we catch up with Slip later on. I guess we see the Senate, going back in the Senate, and Senator Chuchi is the voice of the clones. Basically, they are very much the voice of the people that have no representation, even though it's an entire population of individuals that have been fighting for the Republic for now many years.
Mm-hmm.
So she's fighting for their rights. Like, what do we do after we dismiss them from their work? And it's very classic political stance on things, so it's an important issue. And people were trying to decommission the clones and obviously put in what we know now as the Stormtrooper program. So Chuchi was pushing clones to come forward for things that the Empire may or may not have done after she gets some tips from other people, and she gets tipped off for Slip as a clone that he said he has information. And so most of the episode is her tracking down him and trying to get in contact with him. We find out that she does meet with him, but she was tracked because Rampart's not stupid. So he knew that she was after it, so he basically had his agent following her, so to track the clone. Overall, the episode, was pretty solid. We get to see Bail Organa again. Can't go without talking about him. And then we also these two episodes ran together. They released the same day, so I don't want to go too far. I'm actually struggling currently, just remembering where we had the break point for where it was.
Yeah.
So
the break point was with Rex stunning Clone X, and basically,
yes.
and then basically rescuing her before she gets shot. And then episode 8 picks up with him making contact with the batch,
right,
and asking for some help.
Yeah, because we realized that it was not Crosshair. It was another clone, a special ops clone, which it did make me think back to some of my video game time, the assassin clones and stuff like that, like the shadow clone troopers and stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
they're around somewhere. And the more that we see different types of clone troopers, it just brings out the fact that there are more of them still.
Hmm.
So, pretty cool stuff. But surprised it was not Crosshair doing the hunting here. Um,
Yeah, given
so
given what we've talked about, with the lead up to, well, the show in general, and then the perhaps covert placement of the starting letter of each episode leading up to this, that maybe we might get Boba. And for a second, I did think that it could have been a teenage Boba. But yeah, we get Clone X. We get to revisit the Martez's uh, hangar or a repair shop,
oh,
right?
shop,
That,
yeah.
that that we got to see in season 7 of the Clone Wars. And
I was kind of happy they were absent from it.
mm,
No offense to the Martez sisters. It's not like I did not enjoy their characters, but not really needed there.
mm-mm.
So it's nice that they were just kind of gone, but lent Rex the keys, so to speak.
Well, was it them who lent the keys, or was it Ahsoka? Because didn't the Martez sisters go
Yeah.
off and leave them all behind? Anyways, it was cool to revisit the familiar place, but then you get basically the heist episode, right? The back half of, or episode 8 is basically the heist of recovering the data disk from Ramparts Venator, and Omega gets her.
Yeah, the entire time he's fighting to bury that truth, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And Omega gets her her first taste of imperial politics, and in shadowing Chuchi, throughout the proceedings, right? And of course, the batch is successful, and we learn that Palpatine was counting on that, right? And he was using Rampart. He was the perfect Palpatine pawn in this whole charade, and the Emperor uses this, of course, to reinforce how important it is to kickstart the TK program, because the clones can't be trusted, right? They blindly follow orders. They don't think for themselves, and it's more urgent than ever to kickstart the TK program. And he uses Rampart as his fall boy. So
And he's weeding out corruption in his own ranks. He can look like the good guy. Like,
mhm.
yeah, this dude was wrong, and I'm taking him out for it. This is not tolerated. Oh, it's totally tolerated. Totally tolerated. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you.
Yeah, that's one thing I
Um,
think we'll talk about a little bit later, about what will happen with our good friend Rampart.
and honestly, can nothing just go smooth? I know the Bad Batch. You have to have some peril in each episode, like as far as like, oh, maybe they don't complete this mission.
Hmm.
But I mean, just like this could have been an in and out job, and then like it could have been more about the politics than them actually having issues on the Venator itself. Um, just me, I don't know, because there wasn't really peril. Like it wasn't really we knew exactly what was going to happen. And granted, yeah, kid show. I know, I remember. I said it last episode. Like I get it, but at the same point, it was just one of those situations where that could have gone completely 100% to plan, and
Hmm.
nothing would have been lost. So
Yeah, but it definitely wouldn't have had the higher IMDb ratings that it has if it wouldn't have been for all of the action, right? Because you can only get so much Omega and Chuchi time with the political wheeling and dealing, especially, you get the awkward exchange between her and Rampart in episode 8, when she more or less confronts him, right, about his or sorry, that's in episode 7. More or less confronts him about
7, yeah.
the storm, the storm being the
Oh
reason
yeah,
that
he
Kamina.
knows, she knows.
Uh-huh.
So yeah,
Right. I mean, she was not very covert in her digging, which, she's relatively young as far as
politicians
as
rarely are.
as far as senators go, right? So she hasn't quite learned how to play the game, because we've seen her before in the original Clone Wars cartoon. So it was nice to get the reemergence of her in this series. So kind of going through some of the talking points for this episode, right? You got the clone realization that they're going to be decommissioned, that their life of fighting, of being soldiers, isn't always going to be there. Uh, and you already alluded to it about how the senator is pushing for their rights, their protection, their well-being, right? The pension plan and the clone pension plan. And
I'm just gonna throw it out there that it doesn't really come through as we've seen old clones in other live action shows.
yeah, it's if there is anything there initially, right, it is not funded well enough to continue. It becomes
Sustain. Yeah.
insolvent very quickly, as we see in Kenobi. And so you get that side of things, with the clones recognizing their fate is their time is coming to an end, basically, more or less. And then you have the political back dealings, right, between Rampart and not Senator, Ameda Moss. It's Ameda, right? The blue fella, basically the
Yeah.
Emperor's right hand man, right? And clearly they're all in cahoots with the banking clan, which of course the banking clan is always involved in these sorts of things, right? Because they're the ones who fund everything. And
Banks take care of political. Oh, you're kidding me! Come on,
uh-huh,
a big corporation
uh-huh,
or somebody that controls money.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and the big thing to come out of episode 7 was the assassin clone X, right? And so we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier this week about who or what he might be. And you had an interesting theory that I kind of want to explore more, because we kind of talked about it quickly and didn't go into details. So your thought is what, as far as he's concerned?
There's been a couple. There's a couple different things, right? Like first, kind of Death Trooper, like perfecting that, because obviously you have to follow orders the whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting, because we learned about the Death Troopers in Mandalorian specifically, and like they finally perfected it by taking all the human components out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the clones could have been the first test trials for those. So which would make sense the way they viewed the clones anyway. So and like if you take the top class of the top class, like you're gonna get a great military asset.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and so my thinking, aside from possibly them being a dark trooper, would be that they are trying to recreate the Bad Batch in essence, right? And taking the mutations that they know work, specifically with Crosshair, right? And his propensity to follow orders, and then just like crazy ratcheting that up to 11, giving them hyper precision as far as their marksmanship is concerned, their blind, I said blind, yeah, their blind loyalty, and seeing if they can create a sort of a modern a new super soldier, given that they know how successful the Bad Batch is, at completing missions, staying alive, and so on. And we talked in episode 1 and 2 about how Rampart would have had to have told them that the Bad Batch survived, right? Or I guess maybe he wouldn't have had to, but to have that come back on him probably wouldn't have looked good. And so for them to show that they could get out of that situation proves even more how capable they are as soldiers. And so they could then maybe accelerate the trials in trying to recreate them, only better.
see, that's where I thought they were going to start following up the season with, was the Rampart still covering up the fact that they were dead or alive, and swearing by him saying no, they were destroyed on Camino. So I think he's still holding on to that. I'm kind of curious to see what happens next with Rampart. We talked about it pre-show, obviously, but I think part of it is, does he try to use some of his information intel to get back in good graces with the Empire? So like, hey, Clone Force 99 is still out there. That's probably who got the stuff for the Senate that day. Or the other way it could go is, does somebody like the Bad Batch or Rex and Echo now, which we didn't even touch on the fact that Echo is no longer with the Bad Batch now. He leaves them at the end of episode 8 to stay with Rex, which we kind of got glimpses of earlier this season already, where he was saying there's more we can do for the clones that are still there in there. But what if we get like a similar situation to an Agent Callus, right? Except for the fact that he wouldn't be a double agent. He would just be an information vessel for either Rex or other clones as far as what the Empire plans to do. So pretty valuable asset when you have a high-ranking officer that has been betrayed now. So
Right. Well, and so
if I was the Emperor, I'd just tie up all my loose ends, but it's not me.
well, that's the thing. He doesn't really have to, because he has foreseen everything, right? He knows how everything is gonna kind of play out. But talking about who the assassin could be, or where they came from, right? Your thought was that he's an offshoot of Echo, right? That was your thinking.
Oh, like later on, like that's
Yeah.
sorry, like I believe that Echo could, like, if he's caught, like I think that's where they get part of the Death Trooper program from,
Ah,
because of his modifications that were already made by the mechanical guild,
got
so
it.
I think that some of those pieces, like if Echo's ever captured, his modifications could go into the Death Trooper program. As far as, I mean, even though we already know they can implant, make people more robotic in the galaxy, so it's nothing too far-fetched anyway. But he does have some special modifications that we had never seen before prior to him.
Gotcha. So you don't have a specific person that you think the assassin clone is, or where they came from, where he came from.
Well, I don't think there's enough information about him to really even venture a guess where he came from, other than he was. I mean,
It's fun to
shoot,
speculate, though.
I know we've seen them all in video games, though, like the Shadow Squadron, like the Shadow Assassin clone troopers that were in Battlefront, like all those troopers, or the troopers that were in The Force Unleashed, like there was so many different types of troopers in those shows, and I mean, just being part of a specially skilled unit, I'm just not sure who or where that guy would have came from.
Right. Well, and the fact that he says that he's a believer means that there's some sort of indoctrination of this group with some sort of viewpoint that is pro-empire, right? So they're being cultivated, most likely with in the cloning facility that we see at the end of season 1, and because they've got plenty of clone DNA, presumably. They don't have pure clone DNA anymore, but they have variations, I guess. So as far as Rampart is concerned, I am curious to know if, I know you already talked about kind of a redeemed or kind of a flip. I'm curious if he kind of pulls a Cyril and kind of goes on his own like little vendetta, assuming he's not actually arrested, because part of me thinks that it's kind of for show, everything that happens in the Senate chamber, right? To make it look like Palpatine cares, about this
and punishing him. Yeah,
correct. And
it'd be cool to see, if Rampart would end up building the Death Star. That'd be cool.
he ends up in on Narkina 5 putting together parts with with Cassian.
If Andor would have came out just a little later, we could have had Rampart. Yeah, I used to be an admiral in the
Sure.
Imperial Navy.
Let's get you to bed. Let's get you to bed,
Yeah.
Rampart. Um, but it could open the door for someone like Krennic to not necessarily him, but like the replacement for Rampart that will lead to Krennic in uh, in Rogue One, because well, there really is nobody else right now.
Well, that we know. Yeah.
Right, assuming that he's removed from his post, which it would probably be in the Emperor's best interest to keep him in place, but keep him like restation him, right, or
Yeah, off the grid.
reassign him.
You no longer have your penthouse office overlooking Coruscant. Sorry.
So if he were to be reassigned, where do you think they would put him? Because the Death Star isn't really going to be built for at least a couple more years, right?
You could still send him somewhere like Scarif. If he's getting just reassigned, I mean, you could still send him somewhere like Scarif, which is completely Imperial occupied. So, I mean, that's just it. You could send him to any Imperial occupied planet, and they have no clue what happened in the Senate, because similar to American politics, I'm sure, no one's reading that news. No, like,
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, something's got to happen. So I feel like this season you have Crosshair and Rampart kind of tied together. And so is there any possibility that Crosshair actually helps Rampart? Because technically, well, I mean, and there is no technicality. I mean, if he's removed from his post, he no longer has to report to him. But I'm curious how they're going to reintegrate Crosshair into this story, because we've gotten him.
well, yeah.
We're 8 episodes in. Well, actually 9 technically as we record this, and we've had Crosshair for 1 episode. So, and if Rampart actually is out of the picture, how is he going to get reintegrated into the story?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I was thinking about that too. I didn't even know how to bring it up because we have so little information on what Crosshair's actually doing this season. I think I don't know what you do with him, to be honest, right now. I think he's the floater, right? He's well, this could happen, or maybe not. And I don't really have a great answer. Speculation on it is that I would say I mean, the thing is, all of these clone troopers are going to realize that they're going to be decommissioned. So how long do they stay loyal to somebody that's not going to be loyal to them at the end of the day, unless there's pension or something else? Like, that's the only way you keep them happy, right? Is if you're giving them something after they're done. So I'm kind of curious to see what Crosshair's thought on the whole thing is. And if you do notice, like, no, like, not calling anything crazy out, but like, Crosshair was already like on the older side of clones. Like, he's a great shot, but he's also on the older side. So I'm just kind of curious to see how I'm hoping next episode. Sorry, I'm hoping that episode 10 maybe gets back to the clones outside of the Bad Batch, and we see some of the aftermath of what happened during that Senate hearing. So,
yeah, and just to follow that thought up, there's something in Legends that happens with a clone rebellion on Camino, and Boba's actually, ironically, sent to quell it. But of course, it being Legends, that doesn't technically exist. But this would be a perfect opportunity to have some sort of clone rebellion, or not even an insurgency, but if Echo and Rex are able, and maybe Crosshair is the person on the Imperial side who convinces them that the future is not bright, the end is nigh for the clones, and that the only opportunity for them to save themselves is to fight back, and you get some sort of like clone rebellion, which we know will have to be put down, right? But you
probably get guys like Commander Rex in there, Captain Rex, and then you get Cody back, because Cody's AWOL right now. I don't think he's dead. I know that it kind of made it seem like he could have been dead, but I think he just went AWOL, hooked up with Rex, and he could be one of those guys that Commander Coney is well known throughout the ranks. So like, if you show him's face like going up stuff, like it's gonna get interesting for clones that are still there.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
you've already seen clone captains and lieutenants question orders.
Hmm.
So and now with the new news, like how many more of them are going to join that like mindset?
Right. And so the last big thing to happen, and you again mentioned it earlier because we kind of passed over it, is Echo leaving the group, and it's a perfect tie back to season 7 of the Clone Wars for the exact same reason, only in reverse. And at the time, Echo had become horribly disfigured because of his time on Skako Minor with being used by the Techno Union and everything like that. And he didn't feel like he fit in anywhere, and he was kind of a misfit. And Rex always gave him that open door to come back, and we get that circle, coming full circle in this
That's a big
episode,
circle.
where now Echo doesn't feel like he fits in necessarily with the Bad Batch anymore because he wants to do something else. He wants to help others. And so the fact that him and Rex get to be back together is kind of a perfect culmination of a completion of his character arc, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, like I said, we saw it earlier this season. Like he wanted to do more for the clones still in. He's like, they need to know the truth. They need to understand what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, he and Rex are going to do some. We'll call it good, but it's bad to somebody. So
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So 7 and 8 were phenomenal episodes. They were exciting, fast paced, a lot of good backstory. Again, the answer to the question of how did the TK unit start, right? That finally gets answered, and it's done in the most Palpatine way possible. With perfectly
very
precise
dramatic.
manipulation. Oh yeah, and you talked about it before we started recording. His entrance into the Senate was
As
fantastic.
soon as the thing came up and the evidence was presented, and oh, look at that circle open. Just he's coming up.
It was again
Just awesome. And always awesome, just always awesome to hear the Emperor's voice. Always awesome to hear and see even an animated version of him. Like he's so just well thought out, well planned, knows exactly what's going to happen, and plays everybody into his hands. So yeah.
and the episode 8 being called Truth and Consequence, right? The quest for the truth has unintended consequences, right? And the Bad Batch, everybody for that matter, thinks that in exposing Rampart, they'll have not saved, but they'll have revealed the nefarious nature of the Empire, and thus rally Senate support for the defeat of this particular bill, right? And then of course that is the complete opposite of what happens, and them realizing that there's not always a positive outcome for trying to do the right thing, right? That doing the right thing doesn't always end the way that you're expecting or that you're wanting.
And we've seen it multiple times in Star Wars, right? Where you're trying to do one thing and it just it went the wrong. Well, it went the right way, but yeah, the outcome was not the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So played right into his hands. Thank you, Bad Batch. Idiots. I'm kidding.
So, your thoughts overall on? We'll do both. You can do them individually or you can do them as a pair since they are heavily intertwined. So, your thoughts on the episodes overall and what grade would you give them?
Well, 7 was obviously the build up, right? So, I mean, we got some good info. Obviously, we found out about Rampart really hiding everything, and the clones that were on his ship are somehow still on Coruscant. Like he didn't think to cover that up somehow, which is just amazing to me. But overall, good episode. Got the assassin, got a little bit of action here and there. Got to see the Senate again. Yeah, overall, pretty solid episode. I'd probably give it like an 8.5, just because I enjoy that kind of episode build up because I know it's what's coming. And then 8, I would probably go with a 9. Pretty solid. Again, love seeing Rampart, love seeing the Empire do its thing. And then you get the Emperor at the end. And then you get the the final scene with Echo saying, "I'm not coming with you guys anymore." So it does kind of hit the team again. That's just one more gut check, And yeah, I mean, I guess so far I'm wrong, right? No, we haven't lost any clone. We haven't lost any of the Bad Batch to death, but we are slowly piecing them out.
These 2 episodes were fantastic. I loved them both. Episode 7 had a very Clone Wars feel to it, especially if we think back to, I think it was season 5 when they first realize that they have the inhibitor chips, and Fives is trying to, or maybe that was season 6, but Fives is trying to let the Emperor know, he's the Chancellor at the time, right? And again, Palpatine is right there to say, I hear you, but this isn't going to go your way, sort of thing. And it plays, it's a perfect parallel to what happens in 7 and 8. So yeah, episode 7, I probably give it a solid 8.5 to 9. So call it an 8.7. And then episode 8, yeah, probably a 9. So particularly for the action and the way that everything unfolds, again, is quintessential Star Wars. And so that after a couple quote unquote disappointing episodes as far as the overall fan base is considered, these 2 kind of knocked it out of the park. So according to IMDb,
can I just say that I don't want Ramparts to sit in a jail cell. I want him to get shot. Like he needs to find his demise, like at the hands of somebody. I'm hoping it's Crosshair, to be totally honest, but like it can't be the end of Rampart. I'll be a little upset if that's all we get from him.
No, I would be shocked if this is the last we see of him, because of the number of things that they can do with him, both good and bad, or at least 4 good and 4 bad. And yeah, if
I will say though that D. Bradley Baker got some breaks in the last 2 episodes. So
well, they added in 2 extra clones for him to voice. Actually, 3. 3. Yeah, 3 extra clones. So he had 3 clones in episode 7, and then, the normal 4 in episode 8. But as far as IMDb is concerned, Clone Conspiracy episode 7 is an 8.7, and that's with 1,700 ratings. And
that might be the first time I've rated lower than the mass.
Yeah, way to go!
Right.
Way to undershoot.
Touche.
And then Truth and Consequences has a 9.1 with pretty much the same number of reviews, about 1,700 reviews, ratings. So
they enjoyed this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, overall, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to not enjoy these episodes. They were fun, and they had intrigue, and they had some suspense, right? Because you don't know if the senator is going to get capped at the end of episode 7.
She could
right?
have been capped. Yeah.
There's no there were only a handful of characters that you knew had to make it. So overall, really well done. Shall we read a couple?
Oh, please.
Reviews?
Give me a couple.
All right, so let's see. Starting with episode 7, we have 6 user reviews. See, we don't have nearly as many when people are relatively happy.
Episode?
Mm-hmm. So, Posey fan, our old friend Posey fan, back again. 9 out of 10. So, Man, this episode gives me Clone Wars season 6 vibes. Fantastic conspiracy episode reminiscent of the Fives arc in the Clone Wars. So, promise I did not write that. I also promise I did not read that before.
You are Posey fan.
Posey fan exposed.
I'm so over you.
I'm exposed. Yeah, Bad Batch, not even Crosshair. It didn't show up.
You mean you've been writing these every single week just to read them on the podcast?
I just want to get my thoughts out there a bit more.
What a narcissist, Jesus!
As if me blabbering for 30 minutes a week, isn't enough. So yeah, overall, right. He says the Bad Batch not being in the episode, he had no complaints. Again, I assume it's a him. Yeah, great episode, 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10, couldn't have gotten any better. Probably could have if it would have been a 10 out of 10.
It's weird. It's weird to say that. Hey, it's a 9 out of 10. Can't get better.
9 out of 10. Unbelievable. Clone Wars is back again. Another picture perfect episode. Yeah, the only then last one here. Only bad part of the Bad Batch is the Bad Batch. So that's actually interesting. I'm kind of curious what. Oh, I'm not going to read that. That is way too long. That is like, holy crap.
TLDR it. Let's go. TLDR it. I'm just kidding.
It would take me at least 10 minutes to TLDR this because it's written like a damn essay for a college course. So, but basically,
they hit the 1,500 word minimum. Is that what you're saying?
It says Filoni is far less interested in the Bad Batch themselves. That's the start of one paragraph. So,
whatever.
I mean, but again, overall, very positive reviews. Yeah, I mean, no real complaints to be found at all. And then episode 8, how many we got? 13.
It's a 9.1.
Yep, 13 reviews.
So.
Let's see, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Posey fan, 10 out of 10.
No way. This is amazing. This is amazing.
Let's see.
Omega was in it. Omega was in the episode.
So he starts Ian McDiarmid, Holy Blue Milk, chills, man. So the Senate sequence was fantastic, et cetera. So, I mean, it was. I mean, the whole play, the whole reveal is fantastic, and I don't know that they could have actually done that any better. That whole reveal.
I'm gonna guess that Posey fan is 47 years old. That's my guess. 47.
Oh man. 47. What? I would ask you what brought you to that number, but we won't go into that.
I'm just hitting it.
9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, and think this must be the best episode ever, the best episode ever than any other oh my gosh, never mind. I'm not going to read it. Not going to waste my energy on that.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
English is a tough language to write.
10 out of 10, Filoni just keeps filling in the gaps, which episode 8 was a gap filler. 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, when the worst review... Oh. Sorry, there is one 6 out of 10. So 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 6 out of 10. Says Richard Nixon vibes. I personally don't like the political infighting that's going on, as we see once again insignificant senators playing government. Glad Rex kept the Bad Batch away from the Senate. Only redeeming factor in this episode was Omega's goodbye to Echo.
I'm a little confused by that because the political infighting is something that we need to see because it's how things happen. So
it said, this person says it reminds them of Watergate, and that if Rampart had said, "I'm not a crook," then they would have apologized to Rian Johnson for what they said about The Last Jedi. So they felt that episode 7 was great and that this one fell short. So I don't know. I mean, I didn't really, although I wasn't alive for the Nixon, era. So maybe
I thought this all felt good. I thought it felt good. I mean, obviously, their inspiration came from something, but at the same time, it was the whole time the Emperor's been playing the game better than anyone else. Mm-hmm. So I can't really say it was Watergate-esque, but more like Palpatine-esque. So I don't know. Interesting.
Palpatine gate. Palpgate. Rampart gate. Chuchi gate. Ooh, it could be Chuchi gate. Chuchi gate. There we go. We'll do Chuchi gate.
Got it. We've got it.
Nailed it. Yeah, so I mean, again, no complaints from the broader IMDb crowd, so we won't spend a whole lot of time on that. Very nice.
We'll spend more time on it.
I don't know, yeah.
Hey, and that's a Bad Batch episode 7 and 8. Yeah, and that's a Bad Batch episode 7 and 8.
And
We're just gonna move through it, you know. I mean, great episodes. I will give it a B+ to an A- rating for myself for the 2-episode arc. And yeah, I mean, I look forward to what else happens along that storyline specifically, because that is continuing to fill in gaps, and that's what not just me, but I would say a majority of the Star Wars community wants to see from these animated shows, especially the older crowd that's watching them. No disrespect to the older crowd, but that's who wants the gaps filled in, because the 10-year-olds don't care about the gaps getting filled in, but we do. So I do like following those storylines. So I hope we get more of them.
yeah, the 10-year-old doesn't even know what gaps need to be filled in. They just need to be entertained, and this was it.
I don't even know what it just filled in now.
Right.
They watched these 2 episodes and was like, oh, that was cool.
Exactly.
Did you see this? Or did you see that?
So with that, we're going to bring this episode to a close. And I thank you all for listening. If you do enjoy the content, we do ask that you like and or subscribe or rate or leave a review. It really does help the show out. For fandoms outside of the Star Wars realm, be sure to check out our friends on the Galactic Dads podcast. They can be found at Galactic Dads, wherever you listen. But for us, we're gonna make the jump to hyperspace. So for Jedi John, I'm Obi Sean, and until next time,
May the Force be with you.
Force divergence.